So I'm just going to run through a video that popped up. I'm pretty sure that I've reacted to this woman. Shut up, you. This woman before. But it's popped up in my feed. Flat Earth science, wrong but not stupid. So this woman's obviously seen what's happening, probably seen other people responding to her. So she's trying a more subtle approach. But again, you know, as I've titled this, is she just displaying honesty within her stupidity, or is she being, you know, dishonest? Sometimes it's difficult for me. You know, these people, you've got to take into consideration that they're really laminated in their beliefs. They think that they have a grasp, and because they've pursued a career in a particular avenue of fucking theoretical gibberish, that because they conceptualise, understand their conceptual, you know, formulations, they think because they can comprehend that and it works mathematically on paper, that somehow, you know, provides them enough leverage to have a belief that that's how the universe and the world actually is. When again, we'll go through this and we'll see, you know, that it's just not the case, and highlighting obviously where she has these blind spots, if you like, in regards to her own worldview and what she thinks is rational. Because, you know, again, I don't want to get into a huge introduction. People like myself have been shouting about this for over 5 years now, while constantly being attacked, misrepresented, you know, propaganda videos being made continuously, misrepresenting you, professing you're a flat earther, you represent this flat earth or that flat earth, when it's quite the opposite. Nobody here has ever professed that the earth is flat. Okay? As I say, from what we can tell and what we can experience so far, and what we apply in the practical real world, we can make the statement that it's level. Right? What the full dimensions of this place are unbeknownst to me. And I do not ever partake in beliefs or outlandish claims that I cannot verify or produce for you, so that you can, you know, play with that physicality yourself and, you know, come to your own conclusions. So again, you know, that's the bar for somebody like me. When we're talking about our physical shared reality, I expect physicality. There's a massive difference, as I'm going to show you in this, between what we know tangibly, that we can access in 3 dimensions, and what you can only perceive 2-dimensionally with your vision. So, you know, in the heliocentric model, we're talking about the luminaries. All sorts of assumptions have to be made about these things. The majority of the globular earth concept is based on assumption, and then it constructs it makes a construct based on those assumptions. Now, as I said before, mathematically based on your assumptions or your axioms that you've plucked from thin air, you can create a construct, a concept that works mathematically based on certain assumptions. But your concepts and your assumptions do not define the phenomena. Okay? And as I've continually showed over and over again, the red herring fallacy of looking upwards in order to establish the dimensions of the earth beneath your feet is just absolutely absurd. But again, these people have been born into a cult, an indoctrination system, where this conceptual notion of the earth, heliocentrism, has been passed on to them. And because it, you know, works mathematically, they think that it defines reality, when it fucking does not define reality. Physicality, real practical demonstration, is what defines reality. It's how we comprehend reality, and we advance, and we have tech advancement. These things are based on actual tangible substance, no mathematical theory based on mathematical assumptions that you plucked out your bumhole. So, again, you know, there is some subtleties here. And again, what you have to decide for yourself is whether she's being deliberately dishonest. It's up to you. You'll see clearly from here, you know, I don't read from a script. I don't need to read from a script. When you're genuine and you're honest, for me, it comes across with people. When somebody's genuine and honest, they certainly don't need to read from a script. Now, you could say that some people are nervous, so they write things down and they read from a script. Fair enough. But if something's true and you fully comprehend that, I don't have to write it down to remind myself. I can talk about it freely and honestly and openly. Hello, peoples. I'm going to just share this and pause as usual. So, people need to comprehend as well that when we're talking about physics, when I'm talking about physics, one of the natural sciences, that's to do with tangible substance. Substance and its quantities in 3 dimensions. Okay? There's a removal from physics and an attachment of theoretical physics, astrophysics, apparent bodies that you can only view 2-dimensionally, that are assumed to be in 3-dimensional form. As I say, so many assumptions made about them. And then a construct is devised from those assumptions. We're all good. Cheers, have no fear. Same way all you people. Hope yous are well. Right, let me see here. Oh, look at that. The perspective on the screen. That thing's disappearing, therefore it's over the curve of the screen.
I, as many people in science communication, am
Oh fuck, hold on.
I, as many people in science communication, am fascinated with flat earthers. Here you have a group of people steadfastly rejecting evidence that's right in their face.
So right off the bat, actively rejecting evidence. It's not just about blindly rejecting evidence, Sabine. It's about, pulling apart this supposed evidence and what it's based on. What are its assumptions? Is it logically sound? Okay? So, if you could offer me some of your evidence, which I have looked at extensively, because again, Sabine, and anybody like you, what you have to remember is people like myself did not appear from some other dimension or arrived in some egg from another area, right? And popped out of that egg and started shouting that the earth's flat, the earth's flat. This is the cartoonery that you people continually, project in regards to people like myself. I find it highly annoying. It's really dishonest. I mean, we're now getting into 6 years of this, and we still have people like you who are professing you're academic and probably view yourself as some sort of intelligence, but yet you still partake in this illogical, barefaced stupidity.
Today I want to tell you why I nevertheless think flat earthers are neither stupid nor anti-scientific. Most of them anyway. More importantly, I also want to...
She says this, but then as it progresses on, that's what she's just stated here doesn't really, ring through. She doesn't follow that through. You'll hear what she's going to say.
To explain why you should not be embarrassed if you can't.
See, the way she's titled it as well, Flat Earth Science, as if it's some sort of separate thing. Again, Sabine, let's define science and what we're actually talking about. I invite you and invite anybody else of your ilk to come and have that reasonable discussion where we can lay out first principles, where we can agree on terminologies so that we have a clear understanding and we don't talk past each other. So there's no distinguished, flat earth science or whatever. When we're talking about the sciences that are relevant to me and my position, we're talking about the natural sciences. Physics. What's the relationship between matter, material, objects, motion, okay, thermodynamics, all that stuff. Then we have chemistry, biology, which is in the same category because it deals with actual tangible substance. Then we have the formal sciences, mathematics being a language, which is why it's titled and under the category of formal. because it's conceptual. Language can be used to articulate real world fact, or it can be used to articulate misconceptions of real world fact, or you can use it to tell barefaced lies. We also have the social sciences, which, so, you know, in there we have psychology and all these other things which to me are pretty much pseudoscience. Right? I'm only interested in the cold, hard reality of substance, forms and interactions between substances.
Remember.
So again, this is a subtlety of dishonesty, right? Flat earth science, as if people like myself are partaking in some other, unbeknownst to me, science. So it annoys me when people like her don't define science.
How we know that the earth...
Because again, you can say, well, science, the scientific method, where you're trying to establish cause and effect relations, or you can just go into the realms of physics, where you can just demonstrate, you know, observed behaviours. How does this thing interact with this? What is the tolerances of this substance or this thing? Yada yada. Right? And I can demonstrate. So in physics I can make demonstrations to you about how things behave.
Is round. But first I have to tell you what flat earthers actually believe and how they got there. The most popular flat earth...
So here we go with the generalisations, and again mere dishonesty. She's going to now generalise about everybody that questions the globe. She's labelling them flat earthers, and she's also going to tell you what they believe.
Model is that of a disk where the North Pole is in the middle and the South Pole is an ice wall on the edge.
And no, it's always cartoonery, just the same as a globe, because it's the false dichotomy. You have to throw out these straw man cartoon, you know, gibberish in order to, you know, give some sort of relevance to their cartoon model, right? And it's always this. You've got this depiction of the vacuum of space with gas balls in them that they call stars.
Of the disk. But not all flat earthers sign up to this. An alternative is the so-called bipolar model, where both poles are on the disk, surrounded by water that's held by a rim of...
That's not just the other alternative, there's so many other possibilities. But you have to attach some sort of straw man. I get that, because you need a ghost to battle with, rather than just looking at people like myself who are honest, who tear shreds off of your assumed model, which is a globe. Because again, that's the model that we were born into. That is where the burden of proof lies. It does not matter if you assumed it to be true as a child or an adult. It becomes relevant when you start to address it, to see if what you've been told and assumed to be true actually is true. Your position from that point should be, your sole focus should be on the model that you were born into, which is a globular heliocentric model. Anything after that requires honest investigation en masse, with no restricted areas, access to all areas, so that we can find out exactly what the place is.
Of something, maybe ice or rocks. And a minority of flat earthers believe that Earth is really an infinite plane. They mostly agree, though, that gravity does not exist, and that the observations we normally attribute to gravity come instead from the upward acceleration.
See, this again, here's the straw man, the misrepresentation again, right? We you know, flat earthers say gravity does not exist. Look, gravity simply means the way in which objects fall. Nobody that I know denies that things fall when they're taken out of their position and energy used to put them in a different position, and then the result of that is that they go towards the earth in a downwards direction. The way in which objects fall is a total separate issue from establishing what the earth's shape is. Where people like myself disagree is when people like you are representatives of the globular earth model, extrapolate from the way in which objects fall and try to use that as all sorts, you know, a magic to explain all sorts, whatever you decide to cherry pick, you start attaching this magical gravity, which is conceptual. And you're showing this about the Earth moving upwards. People like Einstein spoke about this. It's called the equivalence principle, where you would have be no way for you to tell the difference whether you were in a uniform gravitational field, which they don't even know what a field is and can't define it, or the Earth was moving towards our feet relative to us. Only one of those examples is demonstrable, right? Where we can utilise motion to show the effects that we get through motion. And as I've pointed out before, we have direction, we have weight. Motion can answer these things. Not that I'm certain that's exactly what's going on. As I said before, I'm open to the possibility of a downwards flow of something that gives us that direction. Right? But to misrepresent when even you're going to quote Einstein soon, and again, you don't even comprehend stuff that Einstein was putting out there. So there'd be no way for you to tell the difference, being the observer within the reference frame, if the Earth was moving uniformly towards your feet, or being in a gravitational field. But as I said, only one of these things can go into the realms of actual physics and be demonstrated. Uniform gravitational fields cannot be demonstrated, because you just offer up excuses. If I demonstrate to you that water cannot conform to the exterior of a shape or an object, like a ball cannot hold water, I get the excuse, oh, but gravity of the Earth gets in the way. I forget what I was going to say. I forget what my point was there, but hey ho, come back to me.
Acceleration of the flat Earth. As a consequence, the apparent gravitational acceleration is the same everywhere on.
See, and again, I know I'm going to keep pausing this, but she says, flat Earth society, this, that, and the other. It's not just about flat Earth society. People who are reasoning with their reality and questioning and asking questions about their reality can arrive at these places. How do you think somebody like Einstein would have arrived at it? Because the flat Earth society said so? No.
On Earth. I explained some weeks ago that this is in conflict with evidence. We know that the gravitational acceleration is most definitely not the same everywhere on Earth. The idea that gravity is due to upward acceleration.
So where's all your hypotheses about what could possibly be going on in these situations? There is none, because it's just based on an assumption, cherry-picked, isolated and put out there as, a demonstration of your model. And as I've pointed out before, the absurdity of the claim of gravity and all the things that it can do, including acceleration, is preposterous. Because in order to make motion happen, you require pressure variance. So you would have to be certain that gravity was some sort of, pressure mediator that was causing a downward flow from top to bottom relative to us.
Acceleration also causes other problems. For example, you have to assume that the moon and the sun accelerate a lot.
See, there we go, this is a straw man, and we have to make assumptions, right? It's them that are making assumptions. Look at how ridiculous this is. They've taken out the globular Earth, right? They're still keeping the vacuum of space gibberish. They're putting in here a flat cartoon, and then they're keeping their assumed spherical objects, like the sun and the moon, above it. It's the globular Earth that makes assumptions about the luminaries. And she's going to contradict herself when she gets to how visual, phenomena can be deceiving. Yet, the only thing they have in regards to the sun and the moon and the luminaries is visible. They don't have anything tangible because they cannot access them in 3 dimensions.
Along with the flat Earth, so we don't just run into them. That's an ad hoc assumption, which disfavors the flat Earth hypothesis against models where...
No. Doesn't debunk anything against any hypothesis, because there is no flat Earth. You're attacking a ghost here, Sabine. The usual dishonesty from globular Earth proponents. Somebody's questioning my model, therefore I must attach straw man cartoons to them.
The orbits of the moon and the sun can be calculated from the gravitational law. But that's not the only problem. You also have to get the moon and the sun to somehow circle around over the disk to explain day and night.
So there you go. There's our dishonesty again. You have to get the sun and the moon circulating over a flat dish, right? Because in her mind, the sun and the moon are spheres, are three-dimensional spheres in a vacuum. That's her assumption, but yet she's trying to pass the buck on to people who question the professed model. No, Sabine. You have to justify your assumptions. No, the skeptic. You. Because you're the proponent of the model. And here you are interchanging two cartoon models with each other, making assumptions and attaching straw men to them.
Night and the phases of the moon. To get the day-night cycle to be noticeable, you have to shrink the sun and move it closer to the earth.
Look at this cartoon crap. I mean, she is attacking a cartoon here.
You also have to somehow get the radiation of the sun to be directional. That's many more ad hoc assumptions. But even with those assumptions, the size of the sun will change during the day more than we are.
Assumptions. I'm going to keep repeating it. You have assumptions about the sun and the luminaries. Now justify them. You cannot.
Observe. And no one has ever successfully predicted solar eclipses on a flat Earth or calculated...
She's mentioning radiation, the radiative factor again. Now we know as you go at altitude, it gets colder. Now if you go to a radiating heat source, the closer you get to that, the warmer it gets. But there's less particles in the air and stuff, geez. Alright, so let's make more assumptions about particles, miniature space balls, shall we? A mountain's not that far up. Still snow on the top of it, while on the ground there is none. Yet the mountain top is closer to the radiating heat source, which you profess is a radiating heat source in your model, but yet it gets colder the closer you get to it.
The observed motions of the planets.
What's the motions of the planets, or the assumed planets, go to do with establishing the dimensions of the Earth that you stand upon? Absolutely nothing.
Bottom line is, it's not easy to improve on today's scientific standard. It was for good reasons that the hypothesis of a flat Earth was abandoned more than 2,000 years ago.
Oh no, she lived, she's 2,000 years old now. Again, all this stuff, the assumptions that these people make are astounding, yet they stand there with assured certainty. Right? That she's got a grasp on stuff and she's talking about 2,000 years ago and she knows what happened 2,000 years ago. Listen, hen, you'll struggle to find anything really resembling anything factual beyond 300 years ago. So how the fuck are you getting anything about 2,000 years ago? You're no, it's just cherry picking a story for your wee narrative.
Some people suggested to me that flat earthers do not actually believe the earth is flat. They are just mocking people who take scientific evidence on trust.
No, I don't believe the earth's flat, never claimed it was flat. Right? And you're right, mocking people that take things on trust, because that's exactly what's happened. People are, the education system are taking children at a vulnerable age and moulding their mind into believing and accepting all sorts of preposterous gibberish, no offering the tools of discernment and how to think for themselves, telling them what to think and repeat on command. But again, this switcheroo that they always try, like it's the skeptics' fault, it's the skeptics that are partaking in all this idiotic behaviour. No. Sabine, I suggest you break out of your naive little bubble and take a real good look round about you.
And that, let us be honest, is something we all do to some extent every now and then. And it is probably the case that some flat earthers are indeed just pretending. But I find it exceedingly implausible they are all just faking it. To begin with, they would all have to be...
I can just say the same back, Sabine. There's so many people that I know are faking belief in a globe. Right? I've experienced them over the last 5 years. These people have been shown to be dishonest. Facts, real tangible, real world physics have been offered to them and they actively deny them. Over and over and over again. So we can play that game. But again, this is the false dichotomy that's being created. The division between people. And if you're a real skeptic and a real intelligence as far as I'm concerned, you would be able to see through all this bullshit. There is no sides. Objective reality is singular. The only debates that are happening are concepts and ideas, which means people do not fully comprehend that which they're professing to be true, but yet they partake in taking sides and debating against each other because for some reason human beings love belief systems, which I find highly bizarre and a symptom of the mass mental illness that is rife amongst human species. You being one of them, Sabine, and here you are muddying the waters further and mixing it up, but yet you think you're an academic, an intellect. I don't see that. I see a moron. I'm sorry.
Excellent actors. Just look at some of the videos on YouTube. Also, they are putting quite some time.
See what I mean about the emotional sway here? It's accusing people of being actors and this, that and the other. I mean, we can all just sit here and sling shite. Sabine, I can sling shite at you all day. It's not going to get anybody anywhere. The request is the same. When are the real skeptics? When are the real honest people going to step forward for a reasonable discussion about this topic? I've offered up a construct that could be built, Sabine, that would put this to bed once and for all. Not that I require it, because the substance known as water is enough for me. But we could build a construct, a plumb, and make every section relative to the plumb. Built level over a stretch of a mile, which would require on your globular earth model that the water underneath that construct would deviate by 8 inches. If you're stupid enough to believe that that's what would happen in reality, then carry on. But please get involved and let's encourage the scientific community, the skeptic community, to get the construct built. If you want it put to bed once and for all, let's make it happen. Instead of all this cartoonery, misrepresenting, barefaced lies.
And in some cases, money behind their conviction. And that's why most of them full well know.
And I suppose money and control and power is not an incentive for the powers that be or the institutions and the private corporations. It's not, they're not interested in any of that, that would make them tell lies. No. You live in a wee naive bubble, Sabine, don't you?
Make others doubt their sanity.
I mean, who the fuck's making a living out of being a skeptic of the globular earth model? Who's really making a worthwhile living out of that? Are you retarded or what, hen?
That makes it unlikely they are just in for the fun. Now, you may want to discard flat earthers as conspiracy theorists, which some fraction of them arguably are.
You're a conspiracy theorist. You think reality is something contrary to what you experience. You think reality is deceiving you. Right? Because you're ignoring reality in favour of an image presented to you in 2 dimensions on a screen. You're the conspiracy theorist. No people like me. I don't think reality's trying to deceive me. It is the way it appears to be.
But I think that would be somewhat unfair to most of them. To understand why, it helps to have a look at the history of the Flat Earth Society.
For fuck's sake.
The Flat Earth Society...
So, again, you've got individual skeptics like myself and many others. Now she's going to try and umbrella us under this Flat Earth Society banner, which is fucking preposterous, because the Flat Earth Society have had no influence over me whatsoever. The Flat Earth Society were responsible for me questioning the globular Earth concept. So, but she has to umbrella us. She has to straw man us. Because she's, again, I'm going to ask the question, is she just fucking stupid? Or is she just dishonest?
It goes back to an Englishman by name Samuel Rowbotham, who lived in the 19th century. He was a medical doctor who believed he had proved that the Earth is flat and then complained for the rest of his life that the supposed scientific authorities ignored him. He referred to his method.
Even saying that, I mean, that's how fucking stupid she is, the scientific authorities. Again, people, I'm going to highlight this for you. Nobody is an authority over you. You are the scientist as an individual. You are the authority over your discernment. She can't even see her own stupidity here. By even saying the scientific authority. What a way to cause corruption. Oh, right, we'll elect these people as the high priests that we call science. And then they're going to dictate the agenda and what gets passed down through the education system and what's to be told to your vulnerable children.
As scepticism, after the Greek word sitio, to seek. By scepticism, he meant an extreme version of the philosophy of empiricism. Rowbotham's philosophy, which is still the philosophy of flat earthers today, is that if you want to understand nature, you should only rely on information from your own senses.
But that's what we've got. They talk about zeticism or empiricism as if it's some sort of fucking negative, right? That's because the globular Earth is a concept. It's not based in physics. It has no tangible physics to support it. It's all language based. Faith in an image, backed by sophistry.
You can, for example, read on the website of the Flat Earth Society. The world looks flat, the bottoms of clouds are flat, the movement of the sun. These are all examples of your senses telling you that we do not live on a spherical heliocentric world. This is using what's called an empirical approach, or an approach that relies on information from your senses. That flat earthers insist on evidence from your own senses only really is key to understanding that problem. I will come back.
That's a problem for the globe, because as I've just highlighted, the globe has no empiricism, has no physics. The only physics it has is language based. Assumptions being made, interpretations being made based on assumptions.
Back to this. But first, let me tell you the rest of the history. After Rowbotham's death in 1880...
Well, this is the whole fucking history, right? Whatever she cherry picks and tells you is the history, that's it, you have to accept that. What a fucking ball-bag you are, Sabine. I'm trying hard not to abuse you, but you're leaving me no fucking option, because I'm sick and tired, and I've said it so many times, I've got nothing new but vicious contempt for this level of dishonesty and fucking stupidity. What age are you, Sabine? Huh? You're no thousands of years old, you're no hundreds of years old. You look as if you're in your 50s.
Before, the flat earth idea was carried forward by another British guy, Samuel Shenton, who once explained to a journalist, "No man knows the ultimate shape of the earth, but that portion we live on is definitely flat. No one will ever know what the whole complexity is like, I suppose."
And again, flat is just a term used, which is why I put it in the title, because it was trending at a time. Nobody says flat, like smooth, like the top of a table. There's undulations, topography, high points, low points. But in general, it is all on the level, particularly the masses of standing bodies of water. An immense amount of substance that can be understood well by everybody. And they should know fine well that it is preposterous for anybody to believe that a standing body of water can bend or conform round the outside of a shape or object and have that topography upon its surface. The water is formless. It has no shape. It will take the shape of a container. whereupon it'll find the lowest potential energetic state, and it'll be represented on its surface as a level, even, horizontal plane. Unless, of course, there's disturbance like temperature or wind or current or whatever. But we're not talking about that.
Because it goes beyond his sphere of observation, investigation, and comprehension. Again, note the emphasis on personally collected evidence. In 1954, Shenton created the International Flat Earth Society. Few people cared. He died in 1971.
See, when she says evidence, again, it's like setting up a fucking court case. Like you're trying to convince people, right? I don't need court case language. I can take a substance. I can make a prediction based on viewing it in the natural world. Through that natural observation, I can make predictions of that substance. And lo and behold, that's exactly what the substance behaves like. You can do it, Sabine. Remove yourself from the area of language and trying to play mental gymnastics with yourself in order to maintain a belief in a faulty assumption. Just take the simple substance known as water. Do some physics and see what the substance tells you.
After his death, the Flat Earth Society was taken over by the US-American Charles
Who gives
Johnson.
a fuck?
But even after the advent of
All this gibberish is just irrelevant. This is just her trying to spoon everybody under an umbrella, right? And attach people to fucking nonsense.
Internet, flat earthers did not attract much attention. Johnson died in 2001, at which point the Flat Earth Society had 3,500 or so members.
I would challenge you on it, Sabine. I would challenge you to say, if you went back 100 years ago, before the advent of TV, right, where Nazis started producing cartoons and films for TV, I would challenge you that if you went to people back then, people who were practical in the real world, and you tried to tell them things like level means curved, standing bodies of water bend, they would have fucking ridiculed you and probably treated you as some sort of charlatan fucking witch and burnt you at the fucking stake. And I couldn't blame them.
The job then fell to another American, Daniel Shenton.
Because, as far as I'm concerned, the globular earth concept really took hold through the advent of television, when you started being able to put images into every fucking living room.
Who's not related to the earlier Shenton, but whose logic falls right in line. He said in an interview with The Guardian in 2010, "I don't think there is solid proof. I'm not intentionally being intent.
Flat Earth Society has become a byword for sticking your head in the sand, whatever the scientific facts.
I don't think there is solid proof. I'm not intentionally being stubborn about it, but I feel our senses tell us these things, and it would take an extraordinary level of evidence to counteract those. How many people have actually invested?"
Exactly. Now, does Sabine even address this? Because this is the fact. That statement there is correct. Nobody experiences the Earth as a sphere, a wobbling, gyrating sphere in a vacuum. Nobody. So, that claim is contrary to everybody's direct experience. It's an extraordinary claim. The burden of proof lies solely with it.
Investigated it, have you? Shenton had the idea to set up a wiki page for the Flat Earth community. Still, no one cared. But in 2016, everything changed. What happened in 2016 is that a few...
Again, I'm just going to keep looking, because the level of lies and dishonesty is incredible. That this happened in 2001 and 16. It's never went away, Sabine. Never went away. Right? So I don't know why you keep talking like it's a new thing. What about the ancient cosmologies? Huh? Where they depicted the Earth contrary to what's professed in modern day times.
Devout flat earthers put up videos here on YouTube, and that really got things going by way of recruiting new believers.
Devout, she's talking about devout and recruiters like it's some sort of fucking cult. Listen, Sabine, the cult is the globular earth concept, right? evidenced by people like yourself and these propaganda channels who for over 5 years now have attacked what they profess to be fringe lunatics. Now you tell me if that makes logical, reasonable sense to you, Sabine. That apparent fringe lunatics who deny what you claim is obviously a sphere must be attacked and ridiculed en masse perpetually. I don't see that level of dedication to any other types of outlandish fringe lunatic claims.
These videos have
It's
meanwhile
not us that's the cult, I'm afraid.
been watched by millions of people. And that had consequences. In a 2018 poll in the United States, 2% of the respondents said they believe the Earth is flat, while another 7% are not quite sure. Reliable numbers are hard to come by.
Well, if you're seeing that, why not let's just have an honest, open investigation into it, Sabine? There's a simple construct that can be built for all the billions and trillions that are spent on fucking warmongering and NASA and all this other crap that goes on, not to mention the money that's taken by the religious institutions. It's a pittance to create a construct, and it could be done all over the world and left there as a scientific monument for all future generations to go and see and investigate for themselves, that shows what the Earth actually is. But you people don't seem to want to partake in that, Sabine. You'd rather just make propaganda, hit peace nonsense.
But we are meanwhile probably talking about more than 10,000 people in the developed world who reject science that was settled by the Middle Ages.
See what I mean? Reject science that was settled. You're not defining this science. I'll define it for you, Sabine. The science that you're talking about is sophistry. Mathematical sophistry. No real world, tangible physics. So who settled it? Who decided it was settled, Sabine? Nobody did. All that happened was it was implemented generationally. Okay? Get yourself sorted out, hen.
That sink in for a moment. How does someone end up rejecting something as scientifically well established as the fact that the Earth is round?
But see, look at the statements she's making. These are bold statements, Sabine. You better start providing something to justify these outlandish, ridiculous fucking claims that you're making. Because I know that you have nothing. Whether you know it or no is a whole different matter. I don't care. I know that it's no what they're telling you it is, or what you believe it is. I've said it before, I desperately wanted the Earth to be a globe. Desperately wanted it to be a globe. Did not like having to go through that process of realising that what I assumed to be true wasn't true. Wasn't it a nice experience, Sabine? But it's a sign of honesty, integrity, strength, that you can assess assumed beliefs and eradicate them and move forward and still be here, standing.
There is not only one reason, of course. Some flat earthers find the idea is appealing for religious reasons. Others are of the crowd who think NASA is evil, space is a fake, and the moon landing didn't happen.
Yeah, space is fake. Let's go back to physics again, Sabine. You're professing to us that there's an infinite vacuum up there, and we're this tiny little fucking speck of dust in comparison to this vacuum. But for some reason, this gas manages to cling to this wee potato rock in the vast vacuum without ever instantly dissipating to seek the equilibrium, which, if you go to physics, would demonstrate that to be the case. Any form of high pressure system adjacent to some sort of lower pressure system without a solid membrane between the two would result in equilibrium taking effect. That's physics, Sabine. Demonstrable. Over and over and over again. Which is why when we create high pressure systems and canisters, there must be a solid membrane between those and the outside pressure. Even a hairline fracture would show you the absurdity that you hold to be true. So, where is your physical demonstrations to support such an outlandish, absurd belief, Sabine? I would love to see these practical references that you don't have.
But mostly it's because they think they are merely being rational skeptics. They have not themselves been able to prove the Earth is round, so they believe they are only reasonable when they request evidence. CNN, for example, reports from a Flat Earth conference. Like most of the speakers at the event CNN spoke to, he was convinced after he decided he couldn't prove the Earth's roundness. I want to leave aside here that, of course, you cannot strictly speaking prove any empirical fact. You can only prove mathematical identity.
It's not about proving empirical facts. We're talking about physics. We can offer up demonstrations of behaviour, cause and effect relationships. So you can play word gymnastics all you fucking like, Sabine. Right? I don't even need language. I can demonstrate to somebody on the other side of the world that speaks a total different language from me. And they will comprehend their physical, objective reality that we share if I can physically demonstrate it to them. That's how we get a comprehension of what reality is.
So more precisely, we should speak of seeking evidence that disfavors the hypothesis that the Earth is flat, of which there is plenty, starting with the historical evidence about how stellar constellations shift if you travel, how the length of shadows changes.
So now she's into again the red herring fallacies about intangible phenomena in the sky where assumptions are being made, and because it acts like a clock, predictions can be made through a process of time, what we call time, that certain things are going to happen. But again, what happens above us does not define what we stand upon. And again, when we're talking purely about visible phenomena, we have to invoke the geometry of vision, which is totally different from three-dimensional tangible reality. That being that the reality you move around in 3 dimensions is totally different when viewed through your eyes. You can go into the street and just look at a simple observation for yourself. Things appear to get smaller with distance. The floor appears to rise up to the centre of your view. The sky comes downwards, and anything on the periphery, on the side of you, will also converge at a central point. These are properties of the spherical balls in your fucking skull and how they function. Nothing to do with the actual world.
To Newton's 1/r² force law, that is the law for a sphere, not a disk, not to mention Einstein.
So we're talking about the radius of Earth and circumferences of Earth. Again, these are all based on making the assumption first and foremost that you're on it, and then going out to seek to find confirmation bias or create a system that works for your presupposed assumption. That's not an honest inquiry. That's a religious practice. That is you seeking bias confirmation.
And gravitational redshift and the perihelion precision of
Gravitational redshift, blah 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 blah, mathematical concepts, gibberish, utter garbage.
Mercury, and so on and so forth. The problem that flat earthers have is that they cannot do most of these observations themselves. So if you buy the idea...
I can make assumptions. I can look up at the sky, Sabine, I can see the circles, the wee twinkly lights, and then I can interpret them whatever way I fucking like. So what are you talking about? This is her trying to usurp your authority again, where you should ignore your own authority and discernment and place it in the hands of institutions.
That it
no different from putting your faith in a transcendental God that's got a moral compass, and you're here to fucking, learn lessons and get a score. Right? No different.
It's only your personally collected evidence that you should accept. Then it seems you cannot refute the idea that the Earth is flat.
Exactly. So what's your problem with that? What's your problem with that, Sabine? Again, this is her advocating for secret institutional, wizardry. Because if it's objectively true, it should be there, accessible to every single human being. But again, Sabine, the globular earth is not accessible because it's conceptual. It's not a three-dimensional object. There's no physics to support any of its claims. You cannot produce a true scale model of the globular earth. Why? Because anything else that's objective can be represented in true scale modelling. But not the globe. That's just full of excuses. But the gravitational field affects, so therefore I would need a planetoid removed from the reference frame that we exist in. That's pseudoscience. Sabine. Thanks.
You're welcome. Sorry I gave you a funny.
That's alright.
So flat earthers' philosophy forbids them to accept scientific fact.
So how would that philosophy forbid you to accept scientific fact? Again, because she's not defining what she means by science and scientific fact. Because if your philosophy is based on empiricism and basing things on direct experience and physicality, practical demonstrations, what the fuck are you basing it on, Sabine? Huh? Word salad, mental gymnastics, images on a fucking screen, cartoons. Because you're a practicing cultist. You're a disciple of a fucking idiotic cult.
Needless to say, if you want to hold on to your convictions, it helps if you refuse to do observations that could speak against them. They are
No. What I'm against is your interpretations, because your observations that you're talking about, let me guess. The sun, the moon and the stars, it gets dark. Eratosthenes put two sticks in the ground and 500 miles apart and seen that the shadows were different, therefore Earth's curved. Geese piece, Sabine. Utter fucking stupidity.
actually many ways to convince yourself that the Earth is round, which are not that technically difficult.
Well, give me some then. Where you're not going to offer them up here. I've scanned through it. You don't offer anything. You just make this idiotic assertion over and over again, with nothing to support it.
Buy a telescope and try to explain the motions of the moon.
Oh, buy a fucking telescope. Here we go. Right, people, I'm coming round tomorrow to measure the dimensions of your floor. And when I come, I'm going to show up with my telescope and I'm going to zoom in on the light bulbs. And then I'm going to tell you that your floor's curved because your light bulbs is curved or something. What a fucking moron.
Of Jupiter, for example. So, what's wrong with flat earthers' attitude?
Tell me your logic. Come on, Sabine. Because your logic is idiotic. I know, I want to establish what I'm standing on, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up above me. And then I'm going to see what's up above me, and then I'm going to make idiotic statements like, well, if I see a circle up in the sky, that must mean I'm on a circle. Well, I can see clouds in the sky, Sabine. Does that mean that by your logic it's reasonable to assert that I live on a cloud? I mean, what the fuck are you talking about, hen?
Asking for evidence exactly what rational thinkers should do? Sure, evidence is key to scientific progress, but flat earthers' philosophical approach by which they reject certain types of evidence is inconsistent and ultimately logically wrong.
How? How's that? How is it inconsistent, logically wrong? Huh? I've just highlighted the absurdity of your illogical drivel. At least I'm honest enough to say I can see circles and lights up there, but what are they? That's as far as it goes. Unless I can access them physically, I have to make all sorts of assumptions, Sabine, and I'm not that dishonest with myself. Right? I don't want a belief system.
See, the only evidence anyone ever has of anything is evidence you collect with your own senses. Except, as Descartes pointed out, evidence of your own ability to think. But this is not relevant here. Relevant is that the distinction which flat earthers are trying to draw between different types of evidence does not exist. All evidence you have is sensory input.
That's right, but there's a separation, Sabine, right? And you should have a big nose as well that keeps growing. right? Because it's been pointed out here over and over and over again. As I said, the evidence that you invoke for a globular earth is based on purely visible phenomena, right? And again, there is never any accounting for the geometry of vision when these assertions are made about purely visible phenomena.
You hear an explanation of someone else's experiment. If you read a paper laying out someone else's argument, that's your own sensory input.
No, the difference is, Sabine, that if I read something that somebody's written down, I expect them to reference some sort of practicality so that I can then recreate that practicality, and then I have a comprehension, a direct experience of the phenomena.
Distinction which does exist, however, is that some of our sensory input requires very little decoding, while some requires a lot. Flat Earthers' problem
It's always vague. She's just making vague statements, empty statements, never any specifics, never any examples.
That they refuse to decode difficult sensory input.
What? Like what?
A good example for the need to decode sensory input by conscious thought are optical illusions. Your brain tries to interpret visual...
Here we go. No, this is how stupid she is. This is how absolutely blinded to her own fucking stupidity she actually is. What have I just highlighted? Right? And now she's saying that you need to have a different way of assessing input. Well, that's exactly it, Sabine, because we know fine well that purely vision is not enough to comprehend what's actually going on, right? Because vision has a different geometry to what we access in 3 dimensions using all of our senses. And you're going to use this example here, but yet you're going to sit there and rattle on about moons and planetoids and stars up above you that you cannot access. You're only experiencing them 2-dimensionally because your eyeball only sees 2 dimensions. Okay? So, like this here appears to be 3-dimensional, yet it's on a 2-dimensional fucking screen.
input in ways that sometimes gives a misleading result, as in this example.
That's right. So now you need to lay out the geometry of vision, how it actually functions. Why is there no exacting papers other than GAVs? Huh? Why has this never been looked at properly? Why is it being suppressed, Sabine? Considering that the globular earth is based purely on vision, you would think they would be able to meticulously lay out the geometry of vision and how it actually functions with precise accuracy. Yet, fuck all exists, Sabine.
You almost certainly think square A is darker than square B. It is not. To understand your sensory input correctly, you need to draw on other information, in this case your knowledge about optical illusions.
Aye, but this is where she's twisting it. The other things that you need to incorporate in is physicality. If you can only see it and you cannot access it physically, you would never have a full comprehension of what it actually is. She's just trying to play on it here with optical illusions, right? But like any optical illusion, like if that was actually sitting in front of me, I could take other instruments. I could take a ruler and I could measure exactly what it was. So, what you're rattling on about here, actually tripping yourself up and putting yourself in a predicament.
Your brain interprets this image as if it was a natural 3-dimensional scene and therefore calculates back to the original color of the squares, taking into account what appears to be a shadow. This is the wrong interpretation if you want to know the actual color of pixels on the screen. The lesson is, if you do not think about your sensory input, if you do not properly decode it, you arrive at the wrong conclusion.
See what I mean? Right, Sabine? So when you're looking up through telescopes, how are you accounting for your eye and its function? I would love to see that, Sabine. I know fine well that you don't have it. The problem is you don't even comprehend it. You're just talking above yourself here, way out of your depth.
Flat earthers similarly arrive at the wrong conclusion by failing to decode evidence, indeed by simply ignoring a lot of evidence that their own senses deliver. This is evidence about how society and
Like, what? Like, geez, a specific. And again, I'm looking for physics here. No social science drivel that you're about to rattle off.
how science works. Whether we are scientists or not, we all constantly use this evidence to navigate life, and I'm sure flat earthers are no exception. Just consider going to the supermarket and buying canned soup. Do you have evidence that what's in the can is edible? Probably
See, this is again the shallow stupidity, right? Because if I reference this in regards to the luminaries, right, the massive difference between going into a supermarket and a can of soup and no knowing what's inside it is that I can access the can of soup three-dimensionally. I can peel the lid off physically and I can access the physical contents within the fucking can. You can't do that with the luminaries, Sabine. So you're just contorting yourself into an absolute spasmodic state here. Making an absolute shambles of yourself.
not. For one, the can's closed. And if you're anything like me, you probably have no idea how or where or by whom it was produced. Why then are you not afraid of eating canned soup? Isn't this entirely irrational?
This is a false equivalence. What's she rattling on about here? What the fuck is she rattling on about here? Simple, Sabine. If it's physical, I can trace all the way back. I can trace the can of soup. I can physically go to the place where they made it, where they put it together, right? And I can see the substances and how it was all performed, right? There's a real trace of physicality there, Sabine. There's no real trace of physicality in regards to your globular earth concept, though. And all its professed evidences about purely visible phenomena, which you just refuted yourself by saying that your eyes can be deceived. So,
No, because you do have evidence that canned soup is edible. You know how the legal system in your country works.
no, it doesn't matter about the legal system and putting faith in the legal system and yada yada. They're putting all sorts of additives and preservatives in it, Sabine, so I don't have fucking faith in them. Right? Again, I don't need any of that gibberish and faith and belief and all this crap. If it's there, I can just access it physically and discover exactly what it is for myself.
You know that there are regulations on what can be sold as food in a supermarket. You know that
deemed by an authority, which are no corrupt, by the way, because obviously Sabine's a fucking loyalist as well. A lick spittle for the fucking powers that be in authority, that they're honest intellectuals who have the benefit of you at heart, right? And they want to look after you and they're all honest and good and fluffy and all that crap. What a fucking moron you are, Sabine.
if what's in that can was harmful to you, then a lot of people along the food chain would be punished for their mistake.
Would they? Would they, Sabine? So why are they putting fucking toxic preservatives and stuff in these foods? How the fuck can you call something food that can last for 5 years in a fucking tin, Sabine? You are a wanton contradiction, hen. An absolute mess. And you want to stop talking like you understand and comprehend science, because you don't. And you should never be influencing vulnerable fucking minds with your gibberish and your contradictions. I suggest that you fuck off and sort yourself out.
And they don't want that. Your trust in canned food is an entirely reasonable inference from evidence.
This is her trying to fucking sway gullibles by using cans of fucking soup, that they should just trust authority, that are telling them they live on an absurdity.
Evidence that you collected with your own senses, because what else could you possibly have collected it with? Now let's come back to flat earthers. Most of you don't have a physics degree, and chances are that...
Oh, here we go. You don't have a physics degree, therefore an authority never gave you a piece of paper, therefore you don't have the right to discern for yourself. You don't have the right to be logical and rational and sceptical and to be able to articulate yourself and tear apart idiotic fucking academics who are pompous and full of their own shite. Easy peasy, Sabine. Bring me the best fucking physicist or whatever mind you think's got all the letters after their fucking name, and I will shite on them every fucking time.
After learning in school how we know the Earth is round, you didn't think much about it ever again.
Who learned anything about the earth being round in school? They showed you a fucking plastic toy and told you there was a magical non-entity at the centre of it called gravity. And that's about it. The reason being, if you go too far into it and you don't keep it as a hypnotic fucking influencer, people might start to question it if you keep making an issue out of it. So they never really pushed it in school. They just used it as a subtlety, a hypnotic fucking trance. There it is, there's your world, represented by plastic, sitting in the fucking corner of the room.
But you're probably confident it's correct because what you learned in school was plausible, and you know it is widely taught.
It's only plausible to fucking gullible children. Right? Only plausible to gullible children. Ocean's Bend, and there's people antipode to you with their feet standing upside down relative to you. Right? Because of magic stuffs that somebody made up. That's fucking plausible, Sabine. Yet, again, you couldn't show these children any kind of practical demonstration. Scale model it, true scale model it, show them a fucking globe, right? And put people on it that are upside down to each other. Oh, I can't achieve it. Oh, well, but it's scientifical. In order for me to show you, I would have to go away from the Earth reference frame and demonstrate it to you. But trust me, it's realsies. Because, look, there's a picture. FUD.
To children, and you know that your government strives to give children in your country a scientifically accurate education.
Wow, there we go. How the fuck, she can't believe that shite that she just stated there. The governments get their children's interests at heart. Why is the government no implementing a liberal arts education, Sabine? Why are the governments no implementing that every child should have access to the liberal arts? In particular, the trivium, Sabine, so that they can have the ability to discern and tear apart any fucking illogical lies that are coming at them. The reason being, Sabine, is because governments don't have your best interests at heart. Governments want to manipulate you and abuse you and use you. So it's in their interest that you're as dumb as you are. So, Sabine, ask real fucking questions.
So you have good reason to think the knowledge you were taught is backed by solid scientific evidence.
What's a good reason? None. Constantly appealing to authority and consensus.
There is no appealing to authority here. You have to...
See what I mean about her contradictions? She's just fucking done it and then says there is no appeal to authority here. She's pleading with you to be an ignoramus while professing the governments love you.
Totally yourself collected all this evidence about how society works. You have also yourself collected lots of evidence.
I don't give a fuck about how society works. It's a fucking idiotic absurdity as well, Sabine.
Science works. Any airplane, any laptop, any pair of glasses is evidence that science works. It's evidence that...
These things that she just listed are based on physics. These things are based on tangible substance, physicality. Right? None of these things were achieved by assuming the earth was a fucking testicle. Absolutely none of them. These things were established through practical play, playing with physicality.
The system works. It's evidence for how the whole world works. So, if you cannot recall just what experiments demonstrate that the earth is not flat, or if you cannot...
What experiments? There isn't any experiments, Sabine. Again, if you're going to use experiment, scientific experiment, and no physical demonstration, you're talking about cause and effect relations. So where are these things? Because I tell you, they don't exist, Sabine. Type it in yourself. The top 5 proofs that the Earth's a globe. What you're going to get is interpretations based on assumptions and presuppositions. Language-based drivel.
Immediately figure out what's wrong with flat earthers' arguments. There's no shame in rejecting their claims, because your rejection is based on evidence that science works. What's wrong is that flat earthers claim they are leading a scientific argument, but there is no scientific argument about whether the earth is flat. This argument was settled long ago.
No, it wasn't.
Instead,
it's not an argument, Sabine. Many times I'm sick of fucking telling you people. An argument's for an idea, a concept, right? Where you offer it up and you try and justify it by using rhetorical devices, sophistry, to try and convince people of your idea or your concept. Physicality, real objective reality requires none of that. I don't need to speak. I do not need language in order to convey to you some physical aspect of our shared reality, Sabine.
Earthers' argument is about whether you should trust evidence that other people have collected before you. And it's an important argument because this trust is essential for society and science to progress. The only alternative we have...
What progress have we made, Sabine? If it, you know, what are you talking about? Progress in regards to, you know, technological advancement? That's practicality, right? You can call it science or whatever you fucking like, but people in sheds and real people who made, you know, tech or advancements in tech didn't need any of that. And again, you need to define what you mean by science. The globular earth hasn't benefited us in any way, shape or form. You've got a wasted resources going to these institutions rattling on about fucking Mars and the fucking moon. Well, children, men and women here are in poverty, fucking starving, all sorts of fucking abominations going on with the human fucking species because of corrupt institutions.
Is that each and every one of us has to start over from scratch with birth. You see, flat earthers would eventually figure out the earth is round, but it might take them 1,000 years until they've reinvented
She's just been fucking idiotic now. Absolutely fucking idiotic. Sabine, you're challenged the same as your whole fucking academia. Come and convince me that I live on a fucking absurd, gyrating, wobbling space testicle in a vacuum. You complete and utter moron. That's a vacuum. There was a big bang expansion thing where all the matter spewed out from an infinite, this is a shite that they came out with, an infinite density of singularity. How can you have an infinite fucking anything that's got a geometric fucking amount to it? You can't define something that's infinite, right? But this infinite density fucking singularity expanded for no fucking reason. Spewed out particulates, gas and all this into this vacuum, and by magic the gas in the vacuum came together to form fucking solid objects. What the fuck kind of fantasy world do you live in? Get a vacuum, pour gas into that fucking vacuum and watch what happens. I guarantee you that's not going to come together and form planetoids.
Modern science. This is why I think scientists should take flat earthers' philosophical problem seriously. It's a problem that any scientifically advanced society must address. It is not possible for each and every one of us to redo all experiments in the history of science. It therefore becomes increasingly important that scientists provide evidence for how science works, so that people who cannot follow the research itself can instead rely on evidence that the system produces correct and useful descriptions of nature.
Systems, interpretations. I don't want any of the man-made constructs, Sabine. I just need physical, practical references that show that what you're claiming is true. Bend the oceans, Sabine. Bend the oceans. Wow.
To me, therefore, flat earthers are a warning sign that scientists should take seriously.
See, again, she's separating here and isolating. Scientists should take flat earth. Look, she's creating a dichotomy again. She's a wee player, this wee bitch here, right? Creating a division. A scientist is an individual who is sceptical and questions the direct reality. Sabine, science doesn't belong to an institution that you deem appropriate for you to place your faith in. You can practice your cult religion all you fucking like, Ken, but don't try and assert that you're some sort of fucking superior, because you're no. You're inferior. And you're displaying it here. Science is a individual's pursuit. The minute that you try and usurp the individual and place it in the authority, you're asking for corruption, Sabine. And again, maybe you're just not smart enough to comprehend that. Again, as I said earlier, maybe you should shut your fucking mouth and go away and have a bit of contemplation time until you snap out of your little fucking delusion.
The more difficult scientific experiments and arguments are to follow for non-experts, the more care we must take to explain how we lead those arguments. Thanks for hearing me out. See you next week.
Whatever, Sabine. Whatever. Utter garbage. Let me go for a fish. Be back in a minute. Right. So again, for the likes of Sabine and anybody else out there, because how many times have I got to offer this up? Again, for me it's not required. I don't require this to be done. But for the rest of the world, maybe it's what's required. So never mind, you know, using red herrings and all your sophistry and fucking rattling on about gravity, the way in which objects fall. Build a direct construct, a tangible measurement. So, there's your curved earth. What you require is a reference point of a plumb, perfectly plumb. Then we build a construct relative to the initial plumb, and we build the construct supported obviously by whatever, and we build it out over a mile, which, as I said in the globular earth model, dictates that there should be an 8-inch deviation from the construct to the earth. Okay? Simple. Put it to fucking bed, end it once and for all. But again, all these charlatans on YouTube, flat earth debates, anti-flat earthers, all these people all asking for money, monetising, taking super chats, adverts on their fucking channels, acting like they want resolve, but yet they don't. I don't even know if this is live, because it's just showing me the fucking spinny. Right, how are we doing, people? Learn Degenerates, T1 Drummer, Perfection, A Call for Exploration of Restricted Areas, Huxley Pig, Steve HV, One Man He's Detector, Flat Earth Banner, Have no sphere. But Dale, that would mean scientific practical demonstration as their pictures and cartoons. Exactly, mate. Exactly. That's how fucking absurd it is. Angry wee boy. Whatever. Whatever. You're right. I've said this so many times before. I am pissed off. We demand to know where the fuck we are here. And all this circus performance just riles me up. I've got nothing but vicious contempt for it. These people profess their intellects and they're honest, objective skeptics, yet they continually misrepresent and try to strawman people with their propaganda, idiotic videos. You don't get this sort of contempt when you display integrity and honesty. Scott Henderson, Bob Bobrovsky, Bloody Stickler Motor, Sick 2712, Party Pack, Shelley, Tracy Story, Bible Book Club. Do you have a denim jacket? I certainly do. I invented it. Sammy Shaw, how you doing? Chris K, TP in a Tree, Nick, Bob Fawcett, Andrew Calvert, Gold Bar, Big Rab, Flat Earth Banner. Des, Sherwood, how you doing? Your Julia's coming over. Is that you fucking hiding all the crispy soaks in, Des? Huh? Make sure there's no a crispy soak stuck down the fucking couch somewhere. Keith Anthony, Shia, Execrate Andrew, how you doing? Construct a straight line edge using the geometry from the initial plumb. Exactly, mate. It's so fucking simple. Rickus Vaticus. The Big Bang Theory equals genre comedy. Spaceballs equals genre comedy. Space Force equals comedy. The sheeple are being mocked always, of course they are. Right in their face, continually. Perfection. Huts the Pig is a baller. He thinks he can prove the globe. I told him to send you an email, but he's too much of a coward. I've heard this all too many times before. I'm not interested in rational, reasonable, honest discussion. They'll jump about these fake, flat earth, globe earth debate channels. Right? Perpetuating a dichotomy and keeping people divided. And many times have they got to be told, objective reality is singular. There is no debate. You can either demonstrate your claims or you're talking shite. He's not going to call in because he knows that I've got the articulation, the ability to tear apart anything that it's going to offer up, as is witnessed over the last 5 years. So, they can keep up their pretense all they fucking like. We know what the reality is. YouTube. Flat phrase. What's the point spending all this money so they say on going to this place above us? Narnia, exactly. Mars and all this shite. They'll get wee robots in Mars. I've said it so many times. An aircraft fucking comes out the sky, goes missing, oh fuck, the whole place is up there, don't know how we're going to find it. But they'll get fucking remote control fucking robots on Mars. Saturn worship. Don't care, people can worship whatever they fucking like, so as long as they don't try and impose it on me, I couldn't give a fuck. Eratosthenes, Cavendish, Foucault, Einstein. As I said before, Sarah and Ellen, they'll laugh and ridicule our practical demonstrations of like how water behaves and how it can't conform to the exterior of objects, and they'll laugh with derisory, derogatory laughter and ridicule, saying, but the earth underneath's bigger and that mass attracts the water more, so therefore blah 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 blah. And then in the same breath they'll invoke the Cavendish, which was on earth. And you ask the question, how did Cavendish isolate the already assumed existing gravitational field from his experiment? Forget about that. Use a torsion bar or some shite. Same time they're telling me that in order for them to demonstrate to me a standing body of water can bend, they need to go to some reference frame removed from Earth, because Earth affects it. They'll invoke the Cavendish because they're cherry pickers. They just cherry pick whatever they see fit. That's it, calling the White House from the moon. Hello, how are we? The 1960s, fucking brilliant. I don't know, Jai, I've got a meet up, maybe soon. I don't know if people are looking for a meet up. You need to give me some feedback. If people want a meet up, or me to announce some sort of congregation somewhere, then let me know. I didn't get an email notification, neither does your live show up on my list of subscriptions. I used to get both. Like, it's the same old fuckery from YouTube, Des. Same old shite. Exactly, Helen Degenerates. True science is the practice of unwavering skepticism and inquiry, constant challenge and re-evaluation. As I say, the gravity thing, people really need to comprehend that. Gravity is just a word to say things fall. That's all it is. They've just fucking manipulated it through time, ad hoc fucking, explanations, invoking magic dust, unicorn fairy dust. That's it, Shia. Say it to everybody. Just focus on the assumed claim that was made to you. You're on a globe. That's as far as you need to go. Just address that claim and see if you can justify it to yourself. As I said, from there, once you realise it's a pile of pish, there has to be an open inquiry. Access all areas, no holes barred. But we know fine well we have restricted areas dominated by military that you and I are not allowed to freely access. And people think that's outlandish, yet we've got fucking imaginary lines that we call borders and controls over these imaginary lines where you need to produce paperwork and ask for permission, this, that and the other. It's everywhere. The restrictions are fucking everywhere. The whole game is about restricting you psychologically, emotionally and physically. Exactly. Who's this Viva Stone, Steve HV? Viva Stone, evidence is for court cases and this isn't a court case. Exactly. Because they're trying to plead. They're trying to recruit disciples and keep their fucking congregations in order by pleading with them, using word salad sophistry. Beyond imaginary curve, do you agree we should keep focusing on the oldest lie, earth shape, instead of the manufactured distractions such as religions and races, ideas and political correctness? Well, all these things are a result of the not being grounded and knowing exactly where we are. Again, it's like you don't know where you are, you don't know what the game room is, you don't know what the rules of the game room is. So religions and all these things that have been manufactured are just distractions. They're just symptoms of the bigger problem. And again, some of them are, you can use them, they're relevant to, different people who are at different states of awareness or whatever. And you can utilise some of these things to maybe trigger them into questioning deeper. So you can use things like 9/11 or, some of the strawman law aspects or, the coronavirus that's going on right now. And as I've displayed before, it's a simple question. Ask people. Do you trust government? And 9 times out of 10 people are going to say no. But yet they'll cherry pick what they want to believe and what they don't. For me, a liar's a liar. If I establish that lies are coming from a particular source, it's fucking game over. I'm not interested in it. And this is where this whole bollocks comes in about, oh, never mind the shape of the earth, there's bigger things to think about. There's maybe immediate things going on right now, but every one of these things are symptoms of the bigger picture. The bigger picture is as human beings are bewildered. They do not know where they are, they do not know why they're here, or what their true chronological history is. They're born into a cult, your culture, cult, and it's dictated to them what the practices are, who they are, what their name is, what's expected of them. Here's your choices. This is your stock of choices that you must pick from. All laid out for you. The bigger picture is that, again, human beings do not understand the technology that they occupy, that being the physical human form. They don't know how the brain functions. They've got a misconception of language which is being used against them because they've got a faulty association with the language and the pictures and associations that have been made through language. Things have not been defined properly for them. They were never given access to the tools of discernment, utilising amazing teachings like the liberal arts, the trivium in particular. As I said before earlier, if human beings from a young age had access to these things, then it would be really, really difficult for corrupt governments or any institution to lie and manipulate, because they would have the ability to tear it apart. But you're not offered that. You're offered up a mimicry system and encouraged to react on emotional impulse. And that's reiterated through media, through your TV, soap operas, celebrityism. So, human beings don't have a fair shake right now. I would love to see the potential of the human race given the proper tools. This is a fallacy like Huxley. You lot denying science while using your computers like driving a car, blah blah blah. This is a thing, Huxley, that you can misrepresent people how you like. The difference with this stuff is that it's based on physicality. This stuff's got nothing to do with the globe. Nothing. None of us deny physicality. None of us. We deny conceptual gibberish like the globular earth concept. So keep it up, sack sniffer. So I highlighted earlier, you think your direct experience and immediate reality is lying to you, and that you need to ignore that and see it on your TV because you're rational and sane. Aye, this is physics, Chris K. They bring this stuff up, and again you have to point out to them, the globular earth is a concept that's no physics, it doesn't have any physics. Nothing at all. Zilch, diddly squat. If you don't believe me, if you're new to this, type in right now the best proofs that you live on a globe. I guarantee you there is no physics. It will rattle on about 400 years ago, a man with 2 lead balls in a shed weighed the entire universe and all its contents. Then it'll rattle on about a guy that put sticks in the ground and assumed that the sun was 93 million miles away. Therefore, the varying shadows tells you that the earth's curved. And then they'll talk about the Coriolis effect. And then they'll talk about the sun and the moon and the stars. And then the number one is pictures. Guarantee you, don't take my word for it, type it in right now. The best proofs, the Earth's a globe. The top 5 will be exactly as I've just listed them for you. That's like me saying unicorns are real. My number one proof is I've got a picture. I've got thousands of pictures. Now the burden of proof is on you. Prove to me unicorns are no real. That's how absurd this globular earth is. Fucking get on here. Bear with me a wee second here. I'm going to get off in a minute anyway. I'll probably be back on tomorrow evening. I think I've got maybe a wee list of things maybe to talk about. We talk about some of the aspects, as somebody was mentioning there about you know, other parts, but again it's all relates to the psychological state of the human beings and, you know, how they get themselves out of it. So I'm always interested in talking about stuff like that, you know, religions and spirituality, consciousness. I don't know, I'll see how I feel, but I'll try again tomorrow evening and see if anybody else wants to join. So I'll probably be on at the usual time, so you need to send me an email if you've got something that you want to talk about. Anyway, that was it for this evening. I'll see you all very soon. Take it easy.